Hello and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. It is early Tuesday, July 29th, 2024. I'm going to try my best to speak in a volume that's not too loud and not too angry because I don't want to wake up my neighbors downstairs at this fancy condo that I live at. What a day for the Houston Astros. And not the good kind. Sure, they're still just a percentage point ahead of Seattle after blowing a 2-1 lead against the Pirates tonight. But hey, they're still in first place. They got a couple more games against the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Seattle Mariners are in Boston. The Red Sox kicked their ass tonight. But this did feel like a gut punch, not just how tonight's game went down where you blow a 2-1 lead with Ryan Presley in the 8th and Josh Hader allows his 9th home run of the year in the 9th inning. It's also about the trade that happened. So, to recap things, it began with Jake Bloss getting scratched from his start. Jake Bloss getting scratched meant there was a very good chance that he was going to be traded. I mean, he just got drafted last year. He's already at the major league level. Even if he hasn't been very good at the major league level, it stands to reason that if he's getting scratched, he's going somewhere. So Taylor Scott ends up starting. Taylor Scott actually did a pretty good job. 3 innings. It's pretty good. But when we found out about who the Houston Astros were trading for, that's where shit really hit the fan. Every second that you think about the Yusei Kikuchi trade, it is going to get worse for you. And yes, Todd, the show on twitch.tv/Gallant says this is actually live. Hello, people. We'll work some of your chats in here. But I really just want to lay this out because I don't think the sky is necessarily falling for the Houston Astros. It's more as you unpeel layer after layer after layer of this trade, all you can really do is laugh because it just gets worse and worse and worse. To quote Lando Calrissian after the deal that he makes with the Empire and with Darth Vader continues to go further and further south, a deal that he made betraying his friend along the way, this deal keeps getting worse and worse all the time. So let's start out. Yusei Kikuchi, the Astros traded for him. Well, maybe he's going to be here for a couple of seasons, right? No, he is a free agent at the end of this year. He will be 34 in the 2025 season. I suppose you could spin it like this. Hey, at least for the 2, hopefully 3 months you have him, you're only paying him $3 million, $333,306. So, bargain. But there's a reason that he's a bargain, and it's his statistics. This year, Yusei Kikuchi is 4-9. He's got an ERA of 4.75. Oh, he's on the Blue Jays. Maybe that's why all those losses are happening. 4.75. Maybe he doesn't have good fielders, or maybe the Sky Dome is a hitter's park. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. If you want to spin it that way, you can. Let's take a look at his stats of late. Oh, he had an ERA of 6.26 in June, and he had an ERA of 6.59 in July. Huh. He gave up 7 runs against the Arizona Diamondbacks over 2 weeks ago. 5 earned runs against the Texas Rangers on Friday. So he hasn't been good this season. He hasn't been good of late. And I mean, just take a look at his career numbers. He has been in the majors after coming over from Japan since 2019. And his career high ERA was last year with the Toronto Blue Jays, where he went 11-6 with a 3.86 ERA. But the rest of his time in the majors, it hasn't been good. At least based off of what you expect out of a starter. I mean, half of his career, his ERA has been over 5. And this year it's a 4.75. It seems to be trending towards being over a 5. Now, I actually covered Yusei Kikuchi when I was in Seattle. For those who don't know, I worked at the Mariners flagship station for 2 years. 2019, right after baseball season was done. So the 2020 year, which was the pandemic shortened season, and then 2021. My first experience with Yusei Kikuchi was in 2020. And again, he had a 5.17 ERA to wrap up the year. But everyone thought to themselves, he's got some really awesome stuff if they can just figure out how to make him consistent. So in 2021, he actually showed some of that consistency. I remember doing shows and talking about how impressed I was with Yusei Kikuchi, who in 2021 didn't have a great April, but he had a really good May, and he had an awesome June. That June led to him being the Mariners representative in the 2021 All-Star game. And he pulled out of said All-Star game. I believe he got COVID before the All-Star game, and this was back during the time where no one was quite as strict on COVID as they had been before in the sports world, but they were still strict, and people were getting essentially asked whether or not they were vaccinated. It was a crazy time. But he was supposed to be an all-star. Anyway, after being announced as an all-star, I felt that he really struggled. And it started in this game against the New York Yankees. And I remember a couple of at-bats where Kikuchi seemed nervous to challenge the best hitters on the Yankees. And I don't know, it was one moment in time, but I always thought to myself, I don't like this guy's lack of compete. It also felt like he opted out of the All-Star game to rest his arm. We were towards the end of a contract year where I think the Mariners had an option to pick up. And as the year progresses, his ERA in July, 6.11. In August, 4.5. In September, 7.82. He really fell apart as the season went on for Seattle. And I remember talking about him a couple of times because I actually got called a racist for the way that I talked about Kikuchi, because I would call him deferential. It was a polite way to talk about a guy who isn't going to challenge the best batters out there. I'll even show you the tweet. There are so many tweets like this from my time in Seattle with rather, let's just say, enthusiastic libs. But here we go. An interaction with @_BaywangBoy, who at the time was writing for a Mariners blog. He also goes by Manny Snackyao. LOL, got into my car. and 710 is on from listening to the game last night. And they're talking about how Kikuchi has struggled because he's differential to hitters. Continues Manny Snacky out. Your racially coded, i.e. racist, language sucks. Jesus Christ. So I remember I responded to this saying, hey man, maybe you need to log off the internet for tonight. Because deep down, the reason I was calling him deferential was because, and I'll admit it, I didn't want to call him a pussy. Because I felt like he was chicken shit when he was pitching to good hitters. And since I was a partner with the Mariners at the time, I thought this was the best way to frame it. But I felt like when he was on the hill, he would not attack great hitters. Now, that was back in 2021, but this is my memory of Yusei Kikuchi, a guy who had a really good couple of months while he was in Seattle. Sound familiar? Rafael Montero, who didn't really have any good months when he was in Seattle. Oh, guess what? He's on the Houston Astros right now. But hey, two totally different pitchers. And maybe Kikuchi has gotten better since that time. But this is a guy who seemed overpaid. And ultimately, when I saw that the Astros were potentially targeting him and some of the blogs about what the Astros might do at the trade deadline, I thought to myself, no, I don't want him. Been here, done that before. All I can think of is that exchange that I had with that dipshit Mariners fan who sees race in everything. I thought, you know what? Let's go for somebody else. So, to go back to how this night began, the night begins and we learn that the Astros have scratched Jake Bloss and made Taylor Scott the starter. Okay, so they're going to trade Jake Bloss for Yusei Kikuchi. You know what? I'm okay with that. Now, he's your number 2 pitcher. Check that. He's your number 2 prospect. He's a 23-year-old pitcher. You drafted him last year, and he's already in the majors. Has he really looked good in the majors? No, not really. But he's under team control for a while. It's a lot to give up for a rental if you like this guy. But if it's just that for a rental who can eat innings for a starting rotation that is just beaten to shit right now, oh, fine. That's not the worst thing in the world, right? But then we found out that's not it. That there were some more layers to this deal. They also traded Joey Loperfido. Now, if you've been paying attention to Joey Loperfido this year, I'm going to pull up his ESPN stat card. He's hitting .236, 2 homers, 16 runs batted in, 658 OPS. Nothing really impressive. Only 2 stolen bases, 43 strikeouts, and 106 at-bats. Is he a great player? I don't know. But it seems like he belongs at the major league level, and he's a hell of a fielder. So you're trading Jake Bloss and Joey Loperfido for a rental. All right, it gets a little bit worse. And it's going to continue to get worse. You want to know why? Well, the Astros, in trading Joey Loperfido, made our sweet Italian prince emotional. As you can see right here.
I'm good. I was in the dugout, and Omar tapped me and just said, like, hey, go to Joe's office. So, I know around the deadline, these things always can happen, and, I knew we were probably going to make some moves. Got emotional for sure, saying goodbye to the guys, just because, this place feels like home. I wish everybody could, be treated the way I was treated.
Look at that. It breaks my heart. I've enjoyed him. He's been a fun player these last couple of months as the Astros have been so beaten up. And okay, he gets traded. Pedro Leon, who's been doing really well for the Astros with Sugarland and in the minor leagues. Guess what? He's going to get an opportunity finally. Cool, wonderful, splendid. But Look at it. Look at that guy. They made our guy cry.
It was like home.
Look at that.
Wish.
I hate that. So it's just making things a little bit worse. And, want to make it a little bit worse? Well, it appears that there were some Astros fans chanting Joey in response to Joey being traded from the Blue Jays. Here it is from Space City Home Network on the broadcast. Take a listen for yourself.
It's the slider. It's 1-2.
Joey.
Brian stole a base earlier tonight, his 9th steal of the year, tied for the team lead.
And I mean, this is as the game is tied and Josh Hader's on the hill, soon to give up a 3-run homer that's going to ultimately do the Astros in. So he gave up Jake Bloss and Joey Loperfido to get Yusei Kikuchi for a couple of months. It's looking expensive now, right? They weren't done. The Astros also traded Will Wagner, their number 15 prospect, a left-handed hitting first baseman and second baseman who's hitting 307, 424, 429. That's a slash line. 5 homers in 70 games at AAA this year. He is 26, but more walks than strikeouts. Is he ever going to make it to the majors? I don't know. He's your number 15 prospect. It seems like in that borderline area of, well, maybe he'll be up for a cup of coffee a couple of times. But to make matters worse, as this just continues to be a more and more depressing night for the Houston Astros, he is the son of Astros legend Billy Wagner. And on top of that, guess what the Sugarland Space Cowboys tweeted out earlier today? It was Will Wagner's birthday. Oh, my God. So the deal just keeps getting worse and worse, right? But here's where it really gets bad. For a rental in Yusei Kikuchi, with an ERA approaching 5 on the season and a stretch of pitching outings where he has, let's face it, sucked. Look at the numbers. You traded 3 prospects to rent this guy, and you traded those 3 prospects to, get this, somebody who used to run the show here in Houston. Astros general manager James Click, who now works in the Toronto Blue Jays front office. I wonder if he has an axe to grind with the team that did not give him an extension after the Astros won the World Series in 2022. I wonder if he also looks at Dana Brown and sees a guy who is hopelessly in over his head. As described to me by a friend who explained the trade for Yusei Kikuchi in one sentence, a scouting director playing GM panicked. And that's what Dana Brown's background is. Dana Brown is more of a scout, a guy who is very good at looking at young players and turning them into what the Atlanta Braves have blossomed into over the last couple of years. A good GM can smell blood in the water. A mediocre GM can smell blood in the water. You made a move with a guy who was never going to give you something easy. And this is a deal that should have been easy. And there's nothing else. The deal has been announced officially. You can take a look at it on Twitter. Here's the Astros press release that they put out. Astros press release. The Astros have acquired left-handed pitcher Yusei Kikuchi from the Toronto Blue Jays in exchange for right-handed pitcher Jake Bloss, outfielder Joey Loperfido, and infielder Will Wagner. If you note at the bottom, there's 983 responses and 499 retweets of this. Generally, when you only have 1.1 thousand likes, that is a sign that a lot of people are tweeting angry things in response to this or quote tweeting it and dunking on it. And all Astros fans are pissed off right now. Is it possible that some are overreacting? Sure. I'm not going to act like I'm a prospect hoarder. In fact, I feel like if the Astros really want to be all in for this year, trade your prospects. But trade your prospects for something good. Or trade your prospects for something that's also going to give you Vladimir Guerrero Jr., if not, at the very least, allow you to dump Rafael Montero's salary somewhere else. And that's not happening as part of this deal. It's just Yusei Kikuchi for Jake Bloss, your number 2 prospect, Joey Loperfido, your number 5 prospect, and Will Wagner, your number 15 prospect, for 2 months. That's a lot for a rental. Now, I know that Dana Brown had a press conference on Space City Home Network after tonight's Astros loss. He said that this move for Yusei Kikuchi was in the works for a week and specifically said we weren't really going to be engaged in conversations where we were giving up too much. We felt like we gave up enough to get who we wanted, but we didn't want to go any deeper and give up more in top-end prospects. Specifically, what you should focus on there is this, quote, we feel we gave up enough to get who we wanted. Clearly, he or the Astros Skull and Bones Letterman Jacket Society wanted Yusei Kikuchi. Why Kikuchi? I don't know. I mean, I can understand a perfect world if Kikuchi was under contract for more than this year where the Astros look at him and say, man, he's got electric stuff. We just got to get him to fix it. But you don't have him under contract next year. He's going to sign for a discount to stay with you. There's not going to be another team, one of the other 29 teams that feels like they can do exactly what it seems like you're about to do. I mean, this trade is one of those ones where, okay, best case scenario, he's your number 4 starter with everybody back and healthy for the postseason. And maybe he's back next year, but, I mean, he's 34 years old. There's no long-term win that seems possible here with this. And in the short term, it's like you're trading for a guy to eat innings. You've gotten a lot out of your pitching staff to this point, and I do think that at some point they were going to have to make a move, but this feels like the only move that they're going to make before Dana Brown does what he always does and tells us that guys returning from the injured list, Justin Verlander, Luis Garcia, Kyle Tucker, are like their own kind of trade deadline acquisition. And I say that because he did that last year with Jose Altuve and Yordan Alvarez. Brown continued at this press conference saying that everything was expensive. Quote, we were having a lot of discussions about most of these guys at the top of our board. The price tag of those guys were even higher and more painful. And he says all of those things, but do you believe him? Or did James Click work the Astros? What's more believable? Who's more believable? Dana Brown kind of operates like a politician when he's up at the podium. I tend to be very skeptical about everything that he says. I mean, it was just Sunday that on the Astros broadcast with Todd Callis and Jeff Blum, he was asked about his philosophy when it comes to who to trade and who not to trade. And he specifically said that they don't want to give up their hitters, their pitchers. They're okay doing that. Okay, Jake Bloss, you move on from him. Fine. You feel like you could develop your pitchers? Fine. But that's 2 bats that are gone. All right. Again, it's just for a rental. So, looking at the deal in totality, I'm baffled. Barring an incredible second half by Kikuchi and a contract extension, plus a lot of work with him by the Astros, who, for whatever reason, are very confident still in their ability to get the most out of pitchers. I would say that they should feel more confident in their ability to send pitchers to the injured list. It feels like they gave up way too much for a guy who's going to be gone this offseason. We did have some jokes before we read what you guys have to say on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook. Here's a tweet from Nearly Near Me. Literally best case scenario is Dana Brown somehow thought that was how you spelled Shohei Ohtani. So basically you're hoping that Dana Brown is a little racist, but it's a subtle racism. Another tweet. This one's from Patrick Storm, who covers the Texans online. It's a picture of, is it Freddy from Scooby-Doo unmasking Dana Brown, only to find it's Bill O'Brien underneath. Bill O'Brien sure knows a thing or two about bad trades. A couple first-round picks for Laramie Tunsil. The DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson in the second-round pick trade. Ugh. And another one. This is from Dustin, his sources. This is a little bit tinfoil hatty, but I do like it, Dustin.
All right, boys. Thank you for your scouting reports. Let's take a look at what you found. First pitcher. Oh yeah, it's not the front of the baseball card. It's the back of the baseball card. First pitcher. Oh, 1 of 2 in Pirates history. Pirates blow in their history. Next scouting report. Back of the baseball card. Cal. We already have a Cal. He owns the Texans. The heck with them. Next scouting. Well, look at this. We know someone in the Blue Jays organization. Let's look at the back of the baseball card here. Oh, career best for wins, ERA, innings, and strikeouts in 2023. Oh, stop the press. Look at this. We've got a Biggio on the back of the baseball card. It's Cavan, but that's good enough. Someone dial up Crane. Tell him we found our guy. Call Click, give him the farm. We have a Biggio on the back of the baseball card. This is our guy.
So here's the thing. I mean, Dustin's fucking around a little bit here, but that's where we're all at with the Astros front office. They talk about the back of the baseball card so much, and it's clear that Jeff Bagwell and Craig Biggio and Reggie Jackson, among others, have a lot of say, and they maybe shouldn't, and they've gone away from their approach that helped build themselves up to as strong as they did, and it seems like they're just completely in denial about the fact that they've gone in a different direction. And here we are, people that have all become rather intelligent when it comes to following baseball because we've been watching so much of it over the last couple of years because we love this team. And we're all looking at this with a side eye. And how can you not? I've seen a couple of people try to spin this. Specifically, here's Ben Verlander, Justin's little brother. For those who don't know, Ben Verlander is a Fox Sports MLB analyst and the host of the Flippin' Bats pod. He said this: more Kikuchi trade thoughts. I do stand by the fact that Jake Bloss is a steep price for a Kikuchi rental, but Kikuchi's season numbers don't tell the full story. ERA is 4.75, but xERA is 3.98. xFIP is at 3.39, and Sierra at 3.46. I don't know what the fuck the last 3 things are. Excited to watch him pitch for the Astros. No, I'm sorry. I fuck off. Fuck off, Ben. I don't want that. Just fuck off. No offense. It's like a kind fuck off. Even Michael Schwab got in on the spin zone. Some notes about Kikuchi and why I think he will be solid for Houston. First on his stuff this season, a 96-mile-per-hour fastball, 89-mile-per-hour slider, 87-mile-per-hour changeup, 83-mile-per-hour curveball. He has 110 stuff plus on all his pitches. Is that an actual advanced statistic? Third best of left-handed qualified starters. He has a ground ball percentage of 41%, the third highest of Astros starters. His high BABIP, batting average on balls in play. I know what that one means. Shows that hopefully a better infield can help him. His fielding independent pitching is 3.64, which is better than league average. Anyway, his ERA is not telling the whole story. Okay, Michael, you're probably right, but fuck off, too. I don't want that. I've watched him pitch before. I've seen the numbers, and I'm gonna go with my my gut. And listen, I'm not a baseball guy. I'm just a simple high school football legend from St. Petersburg, Florida, playing at the absolute lowest level of high school football in Florida. Baseball confuses me, frightens me. I don't understand all your witchcraft statistics and all that bullshit. Okay? All I know is I watched Kikuchi pitch before in Seattle in 2021 when he was younger and there was more upside. And eventually even I was out on him. A guy who was beating the drum for Yusei Kikuchi, underrated? Early in that 2021 season. I'm out. I don't like this one. It's a rental. How much better are you going to make him by the end of the year? Are you going to sign him to an extension? It almost feels like you have to. And how can you when you have as much issues when it comes to contracts as you do right now? I mean, you don't even know if Alex Bregman, who hit the walk-off home run on Saturday, is coming back. So, there you go. Let's read some comments here on YouTube at Paul Gallant, on twitch.tv/Gallant Says, also on X at Gallant Says, facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports, and on Instagram at Sports Gallant. Michael Lanzano. Well, I guess I don't have to wait tomorrow to hear what you think about the trade. We're trying to do this show a little bit more. I apologize for not doing it more. I get lazy. I feel like people aren't going to enjoy listening to it. I get in my own head about it. This is the problems of a creative type. I think nobody wants to hear what I've got to say. But I appreciate you stopping by, Michael. Enrique Gonzalez, it's bad when Paul does a late show. Frontrunner says Gallant at night. Johnny and Dasha says, what an L of a night. It kept getting worse. It really did keep getting worse. Todd the Show says he's in on the deal. Twitch.tv/Gallant says, Lopes sucks. He's a great fielder. Wagner was never going to start. I am with you in that Wagner was probably never getting to the major league level. Bloss is whatever. It's not that bad. The price isn't that bad, but that price for a reliever that isn't that good, that's, I think, where we're all at here. I do agree in that, like, the further we get away from the trade, some of us, I think, we're reacting with our gut immediately, and your gut told you, fuck this, Kikuchi sucks. And these guys are way better than they actually are. But clearly, if the Astros are willing to trade Joey Loperfido, they don't see him having the kind of potential that we do for a rental. They don't feel that way for Will Wagner. They don't feel that way for Jake Bloss. So that's why I'm not angry, but I mean, it's just gut punch after gut punch. In totality, all of that adding up to a trade for a rental is where a lot of people are frustrated. Michael Lozano comments, hopefully Pedro Leon makes up for it. I hope he does. He's been doing very well in the AAA. Todd the Show is saying he's looked pretty good indeed against the top teams in the American League so far this year. Fair enough, but he's been dog shit for the last month. Screwhead Texas comments, Brown was sent here to sabotage us. Do you think so? Jason Wagner asks, Paul, is Dana Brown the Astros Bill O'Brien? You need more moves to get down there. Rudy says this trade reeks of Jeff Bagwell instincts. Well, if you saw Kikuchi throwing at 96 miles per hour with an 89 mile per hour slider, possibly. Jason Wagner says, bring back Luno. I mean, we'd all love that. It's crazy that the Red Sox just gave Alex Cora a contract extension and Jeff Luna was out of baseball. I think Cora is a top 3 paid manager in all of baseball right now. Jason Wagner says, making trades for the sake of making trades isn't going to fix anything. You're making a trade to bring in another arm who can eat up innings, so I kind of get it. But, yeah, I wanted something more than this. Lion says he's got good stuff and decent numbers against division rivals in the Yankees, but we got fleeced for sure. Jason Wagner says, watch this dude come in and have a 1 ERA the rest of the way. We'll have to eat a shit sandwich. LOL. I mean, I hope that happens. I want everyone to know that. Like, I don't generally want to be right when I'm being a cynical or skeptical person. I still watch these games like a fan. And while baseball is definitely not my favorite sport, I mean, the team that I watch on a nightly basis, I want them to be good. Because it's my time that I'm spending watching the game, you know? So hopefully it does work out. I hope we're all wrong. More comments here. People are saying fire Brown. Pedro Leon has been in the minors for 10 years. Bloss for crap Coochie was enough. Lope and Wagner was too much. Yeah, if it was Bloss, I think we would all feel a little bit better about this. Because Bloss was not looking so great, you know? But now here we are. And, yeah, it's a little bit frustrating, man. It's a little bit frustrating. All right. What else do we got here? Oh, well, okay. Want to make things a little bit worse, huh? Not to be outdone, the Houston Texans gave us some bad news today. Yeah, I saw that's a C-, Horatio Kane transition. We're trying to bring those back. But, guys, look, I mean, I've been out at Houston Texans Training Camp every single day.
It's football time in Houston, and we're ready to play.
And something interesting that I've noticed is that Denico Autry, one of the Texans' big free agent acquisitions this offseason, he hasn't played much at practice. And I figured, all right, maybe he's dealing with something or he's getting veteran treatment. He's 34 years old. But there's been a couple of times where I've thought to myself, not generally focusing on what's going on in the trenches. It's really hard to do that in training camp. They don't go 100%. But I'm looking at the offensive line going up against the defensive line. I'm looking for him occasionally, and then I'm like, oh, he's not there. And I'm wondering if this is the reason. Because today we found out that Texans defensive end / defensive tackle Denico Autry has been suspended for 6 games for violating the NFL's policy against performance-enhancing substances. They announced this today. Autry said in a statement the violation was because his doctors submitted a prescription for a different medication that contained a banned substance. He said he did not intentionally violate the league's policy, but accepts the punishment. You know what I found really interesting about this statement release, and you can check it out now here if you're watching along with us live, youtube.com/PaulGallant, twitch.tv/Gallant says, it looks like he scanned a Microsoft Word document or screen grabbed the Microsoft Word document, and I love it. No notes app from a 34-year-old. This man sat down and typed this out. And you know what? I have some respect for that. I hate the notes apps. Type it out like a man. Honestly, I wish everything had keyboards. Bring back Blackberries. Bring back sidekicks. My thumbs are terrible. I don't know how many people saw this, but I was tweeting out a post that I'll admit was 100% to engagement farm because I don't do so hot on the Twitter streets. And I tweeted out accidentally my phone that's got a cracked screen right now, and I got to get that fixed. At ESPN, like 975-69420 afterwards. Didn't see that until after the fact. We all need keyboards. So I respect Denico Autry for clearly typing this out on Microsoft Word. If you can't read it, I'll read it for you. Over the course of my 10-year NFL career, I have never engaged in the use of performance-enhancing drugs. Pause for a moment. I, too, have never engaged in the use of performance-enhancing drugs. High five. Continues Denico, quote, Over that period, I have been subject to countless tests, none of which have ever returned a positive result. I was therefore stunned this offseason when I learned that one of my tests returned a positive result. I immediately investigated the matter and discovered that a pharmacy to which my doctor submitted a prescription for a different medication had, whether intentionally, recklessly, or negligently, included a banned substance. I want to be clear, at no time did I know or even suspect that this medication contained a banned substance. Interesting. So did the doctors fuck this up? Does sound like he's blaming the doctors, at least through 2 paragraphs. Continues Autry's statement. Upon discovering the source of the positive test, I immediately retained legal counsel in connection with this matter. My counsel provided the NFL with information, including documentation from my doctors establishing that I neither asked for nor was prescribed any banned substances. It was important to me that the NFL know that I did not intentionally or even knowingly ingest a banned substance. I understand, however, that under the NFL's policies, ultimate responsibility for what enters my body rests with me. To that end, while I intend to explore legal options pertaining to the circumstances that resulted in my positive test, I have accepted the NFL's punishment of a 6-game suspension. I want to apologize to the Texans organization, my teammates, and the fans for any distraction this may cause. Finally, I want to assure our fans that my commitment to competing to be the best of my ability has only grown, and I look forward to returning to the field. What's really funny about this statement is it's long, it's well written, and essentially it's blaming the doctors while accepting responsibility. And here's the funny thing. I actually find this statement plausible. I totally can see doctors getting a prescription for something that was banned. But at the same time, it's on you to check with the doctors and check with your team doctors to make sure that everything is kosher. So blaming the doctors while accepting responsibility, it seems like it's straight out of every single athlete's playbook when they get popped for PEDs or something like that. So I'm not going to stand up here and say, I stand with Denico Autry. He might be right here, but there's so many other athletes that have kind of fucked him over here, where they've said something similar when they get popped. 6 games is a long time. I suppose it's the easiest stretch of the Houston Texans schedule when it comes to the quarterbacks that they are going against. We were looking at the schedule earlier this morning on my radio show, which you can hear noon to 3 on ESPN 97.5, 92.5, and 97.9 HD2. And on top of that, on our at ESPN Houston YouTube channel or on our Twitch at ESPN 975. But if you take a look at the Texans schedule this season, I'm about to pop it up on the screen really quickly here for everybody so that you can see who they are going up against. You can kind of see this here. So they're starting off the year at Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson. I think Richardson's a plus player. He's definitely better than Gardner Minshew. They host the Bears and Caleb Williams week 2, Sunday Night Football. Maybe Williams is good. I will imagine that week 2 he will not be much better than C.J. Stroud was in week 2, which was rather shaky until the very end of the game in garbage time. Was that against the Colts? Yeah, that was against the Colts because week 1 was the Ravens. At Minnesota, okay. Then you're going up against a quarterback that's not very good. But home against Jacksonville, that's Trevor Lawrence. Home against Buffalo, that's Josh Allen. And then at New England. So maybe in your first 6 games where Denico Autry is suspended, worst case scenario, you're going up against 4 good quarterbacks. It's the best time of season to miss Denico Autry, but certainly not ideal. I feel like some, in fact, are being a little bit too dismissive of how much losing Denico Autry could hurt on Houston Texans, Twitter specifically. Sure, he's played 67% of snaps or less for Tennessee the past 3 years. He's also 34, so how much was he actually going to play? But he's a $10 million a year player who had 11 and a half sacks last year. And I think more importantly, he has the ability to line up on the inside and get after the quarterback in addition to doing it on the outside. You can move him all over the place. So now you lose a really versatile defensive line piece. And sure, you still got waves of defenders. You've got Daniil Hunter, who you signed this offseason. You got Will Anderson. You got Mario Edwards, who they've been moving on the inside and to the outside too. You've got Jerry Hughes back. You've got Derek Barnett. Like, you've got a lot of pass rushers to throw at quarterbacks, so they're still going to be in pretty good shape. They're still going to have a great pass rush. And based off of what we've seen at training camp, I mean, they're overwhelming some of the Texans' offensive linemen. Maybe that offensive line isn't very good, but I'm sure there are some worse offensive lines in the NFL that the Texans could absolutely destroy. But to miss a $10 million a year player who had 11 and a half sacks last season and has that ability to line up on the inside, you're going to miss him. You're going to miss him. You signed him this offseason, and okay, maybe you're saying to yourself, he's not going to be one of the top 3 most impactful offseason acquisitions in an offseason where you got Stephon Diggs and you got Daniil Hunter and you got Azeez Al-Shaair, among others, but you're going to miss him for a little bit. Don't dismiss this entirely. You know, you brought in 28 sacks this season in 2 players, and he's one of those 2 players. Continuing to talk about this will 100% lead somebody to start beating the drum to sign J.J. Watt, who continues to be posting thirst traps. I think the most recent one was on a boat. Listen, I can appreciate a man who's in good shape. A man who's got bod goals, the bod goals that I have. Like, I want to look like J.J. Watt someday. Will that ever happen? Not without performance-enhancing drugs. Denico Autry, can you help me out? Daniil Hunter, you got huge biceps. They're extremely vascular. Can you help me out? I'm just asking the question. My God, guys, I'm not saying that I would put unnatural things in my body. I am saying I would put unnatural things in my body to look hot. I wouldn't put other things in my body, though, okay? You know what I'm talking about. Performance-enhancing drugs. Gosh. Anyway, what else do we have here? Nothing much on Denico Autry. We found out that news at the very beginning of today's radio show, and I was a little pissed off that we brought it up because I wanted to just bask in the Astros winning 2 or 3 against the Dodgers over the weekend. That feels years ago. Reading some comments before I tell you what I saw at Texans Training Camp earlier. I guess it's not today. Yesterday morning, since we are recording this at 1:55 on July 30th. A lot of comments about the Yusei Kikuchi trade. Jason Wagner, Denico Autry with the "I've been sabotaged by my nutritionist" defense. Yes, 100%. More comments. I'm sticking to the ones that are about Denico Autry and the Houston Texans here. I want to know Rick Smith's first-round hit percentage in the draft. It must be Hall of Fame level. Let's take a look. Houston Texans first-round picks. It was pretty good. I want to say that he took over, I think, after the Mario Williams pick. Maybe it was after the Amobi Okoye pick in 2008. But Dwayne Brown, who was a Pro Bowler, Brian Cushing, who was a Pro Bowler, Kareem Jackson, who had a slow start to his career, but eventually became a very good player. J.J. Watt, best defensive player ever, best Houston Texan ever. Whitney Merciless, he was a good player. DeAndre Hopkins, Jadeveon Clowney. Things got a little dicey with Kevin Johnson. I liked Will Fuller. Deshaun Watson. Yeah, they did a really good job in the first round. Rick Smith. That's hard to do. Jason says Paul won't know Rick Smith. He was part of the Chaz at the time. No, I was here. I was here for Rick Smith. I was here from 2011 to 2019, and then I left for 2 years to go up to Seattle, 2019 to 2021. Rick Smith is a fascinating story, and not everything has been told about the end of that 2017 season where ultimately Bill O'Brien took over the general manager role. It's a fascinating story. I'm curious if anyone ever does a little homework on that and puts something together. A couple of people also have commented that, this is Jason Wagner again. Jason, you're the most commenty person here. Jason Wagner says, hate to be sour milk, but I think the Texans take a step back this year. Impossible schedule and no improvement on the offensive line. I think it's possible. The schedule is the 4th toughest in the NFL. The offensive line should be better because they're healthy. So I disagree from that perspective. Juice Scruggs a whole year at center going into his second season. Kenyon Green is where I have questions at left guard. And I will say the Texans offensive line has had some shaky moments in training camp practice. Laramie Tunsil being back, Titus Howard staying on the right tackle spot the entirety of a season. I think that's big. Darkman 420 says, I think the realistic win total is 9 to 10. Depends on how good everyone else is. I think right now I'm going to say 11 for the season, but I don't think you're too far off. More comments here. You don't need to apologize for the Chaz joke, Jason. I got to talk about Chill Dog someday. Probably do it next year. The anniversary was about a week ago. Rudy says Seattle has the worst people. Seattle has some annoying people. There are some very nice people in Seattle too, though. I will say Mariners fans treated me great when I was up there. Seahawks fans were a little psychotic. Seahawks fans, they really think they know everything. And as someone who grew up a Patriots fan, I feel like I know everything. So there was a little bit of conflict on that front. But like, whose team won more Super Bowls? Mine. Who knows more about football because his team won more Super Bowls? Me. Suppose that's sort of how like the Crusades started. Well, actually, my gods perform more miracles. Oh yeah, well my God helped me invade all of North Africa. Oh yeah, let's fight over it. Like, but hey, Tom Brady's a pretty good religion to have. Scooby-Doo up. Defensive Co 9 on Twitch says, hello, sorry for bothering you. Well, you've bothered me, so go fuck yourself. I want to offer promotion of your channel viewers, followers, views, chat bots, etc. The price is lower than any competitor. Yeah, suck my dick. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself, bot. Fuck you with a shovel. That's not nice. That's not kind. Here's what I saw at Houston Texans Training Camp. Practice number 9. Either the Houston Texans defensive line is fucking awesome, without Denico Autry, by the way, or the entire Texans offensive line is getting shoved to this point. I mean, CJ Stroud, it's been a couple of days now where it seemed like he has had absolutely no time to throw the football. And when he has had time, he's been taking a lot of shots down the field. But the results have been lacking. Like, it's been a desert when he's been shooting the football downfield. Deflected passes, balls out of bounds, incomplete passes, the occasional interception. Stroud hasn't looked great the last couple of days. And if this continues, this might be the subject of tomorrow afternoon's live stream, where I'll talk about what went down at practice. Really, the offense outside of Stroud to Stephon Diggs in the passing game has not popped, and the offensive line's a big issue right now. No Laramie Tunsil. There were a couple of moments in practice today as well where Titus Howard was out, but he came back in dealing with some sort of injury. It's been stuck in quagmire to this point. As far as the rookies at Houston Texans training camp, Kamari Lassiter is already the number 2 corner. It's over already. You'll hear some players talking about him in just a moment. Caleb Bullock, the safety they drafted out of USC, he looks a lot taller than he is. He's 6'3", but he looks like one of the tallest players on the field. And he seemed to have a nice deflection on a deep pass to someone I couldn't see. We didn't have a great line of sight. Far, deep right sideline where, on the other side of the field, like 20 yards from the end zone. That ball was about 20 yards to the end zone. But he was getting tapped on the head after a play seemed to be made downfield. It was definitely an incomplete pass. So that's good to see. It seems like he's got some range. He's definitely got height. The big issue for him at USC was supposedly his tackling angles. Jawar Jordan had a nice one-cut run for 6th or 5th-round rookie running back out of Louisville. With the 3rd-string unit, he's had some receptions as well. Seems to have some nice hands. So he's actually looked pretty good. I wonder if he's actually going to get snaps as a 3rd down back or something like that. Damian Pierce is getting the most reps right now with Joe Mixon out. And the plan is Wednesday, since the Texans have the day off, to go back through everything I wasn't able to get to and react to a bunch of quotes. Blake Fisher, the tackle that they drafted, it's been rough. It has been rough. Still lots of time, though. When you're going up against Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, you're kind of fucked. Wanted to touch on some things that I heard. You can actually hear them for yourself here. I'm not liking what I see on the offensive line in these practices, but do I know what's going on with offensive line play? Not really. I'm not focusing on it that hard. I just feel like CJ Stroud's been running for his life a lot. So D'Amico Ryans today after practice was asked about how the offensive line is coming along.
Yeah, O-line, they're doing a good job of working together and still building that right cohesiveness, and it's still coming together. But I think they're headed in the right direction. Right?
Headed in the right direction, still building. I mean, that's a polite way for a head coach to say, yeah, there's still a lot of work to do. There still is a lot of work to do. And they are getting worked by the first-team defensive line. And, hey, maybe that defensive line, maybe that pass rush is going to be elite, but, yeah. You've also got a lot of praise for Kamari Lassiter, who had a nice deflection on a deep pass to Noah Brown. First off, here is Texan safety Jimmy Ward, the same Jimmy Ward who seemed to start a scuffle at Donnybrook with Stephon Diggs in practice a couple of days ago.
Guys like Lockdown, if that's Kamari. If guys don't know who that is, his Lockdown, got the chain, which is cool. Been making a lot of plays, like it's crazy. CB been making a lot of plays. His range out the middle of the field is it's fast.
CB, who he's referring to, is Kalen Bullock. So also nice to hear Kalen Bullock get a little compliment there. But that's the first part of Jimmy Ward, unprompted, bringing up Kamari Lassiter. Here is more Jimmy Ward, who's been around the NFL for a little bit. Also got in a fight with DeAndre Hopkins back at a Houston Texans training camp practice when he was with the 49ers and Hopkins was still here back in the day. Here is more Jimmy Ward talking about Kamari Lassiter and his nickname.
Calling it Lockdown already?
Yeah, he got his name way before he even got here. But I gave him that name once I was watching him in OTAs. Like, I'm pretty. Oh, was y'all at practice in OTAs? Yeah. Oh, y'all seen it, man. I don't need to say it. Y'all seen it. Y'all seen him out there.
Jimmy, you got to play a little bit.
So, Jimmy Ward's calling him Lockdown. Kamari Lassiter, second-round pick out of Georgia, who is the de facto number 2 starter for the Houston Texans. Whether that's good or bad, we'll see in this coming year. He calls himself the locksmith, and he actually has like a chain with a locksmith on it. I feel like you got to wait to give yourself a nickname until you've actually done something in a real NFL game, but that's just me. That's just me. Whatever the case, he's been looking good. And I feel more comfortable with him at the number 2 corner position than I do with a Jeffrey Okudah or CJ Henderson on their 3rd team in 4 years after being top 10 picks back in the day. So that's Jimmy Ward talking about what he's seen out of Kamari Lassiter. Here is Noah Brown, who, as I said before, had that pass thrown his way, deflected by Lassiter, talking about the Texans' second-round rookie corner.
Definitely the best young DB I've seen coming out of college that I've had the chance to go against. He's very sticky in coverage, very confident in his ability, and I think if he keeps on the pace that he's at, he could have an elite rookie season and elite career.
Elite rookie season, elite career, and one more time, the beginning of that, so you can hear what he says about him.
All the time. I think that's one of the things about our room. We have good mix of young. Definitely the best.
No, you got to go up against him sometimes in practice, but how have you seen Kamari last year transition from college to
definitely the best young DB I've seen coming out of college.
Definitely the best young DB I've seen coming out of college. Noah Brown's been in the NFL for a hot minute. Not forever, but that's pretty high praise. So Kamari Lassiter has been one of the stars of Houston Texans training camp, as is Derek Stingley on the other side. The defense has won a lot, and there's this cliche, not just iron sharpens iron, which the Houston Texans love to tell us all the fucking time. But there's another cliche that you'll hear, that the defense is always ahead of the offense early on in training camp. And it does feel that way. Hopefully that changes in the very near future. There's one more practice tomorrow before their preseason game Thursday against the Chicago Bears. We will have a live stream after that preseason game. Here's the plan for the rest of the week. And again, I apologize because I am such a procrastinator. I mean, I started this fucking thing at 1 a.m. tonight. And on top of that, I want to do this on a daily basis, especially now that, I don't get to do the show by myself anymore. Nothing against Joe. Like, the show with Joe is a good show. It's just I like to be able to do things in my own quirky way. I want to do this on a daily basis. The time, still trying to figure out what's an ideal time for me so I can put the amount of prep into this that I feel like is necessary, because I'm a little psychotic with that stuff. But tomorrow, I plan on having another recap of Texans camp plus more. I'll find something else to discuss. Wednesday, I'm going to recap everything I didn't get to from Texans training camp, from practice 3 through practice 8, and the general themes of camp before the preseason game on Thursday. And Thursday, we'll do a recap of the preseason game against the Bears. We've got a function at I think like 6 o'clock on Thursday, so I'll probably start watching the game a little bit later than most. It's the first preseason game of the year, so you got to take everything with a grain of salt. There's always a lot of hype that goes into that first preseason game, that first football game, and then you watch and you're like, okay, give me the real football. And I'm sure for the most part, we're just going to be watching guys who are backups fighting for roster spots playing more than anything. Optimally, we're going to do shows Sunday night through Thursday. I feel like the best time for me might be to do the show right after I do my radio show. So we're thinking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at like 4 o'clock or so. But because I procrastinated and got this thing started at 1 a.m. today, here we are. Look for one a little bit later on today. I appreciate y'all for stopping by, listening to me talk about the Astros trading for Yusei Kikuchi, Denico Autry's suspension, and what I saw at Texans training camp today. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, rate, review on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you do. This will not be posted in podcast form, but we're going to get back to putting this on Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud as well. I am merely Paul Gallant. Thank you so much for stopping by tonight. I promise to try to do this more. So long, farewell, and have yourselves a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Peace.